Well, welcome everybody. So I heard that, and so I figured you guys can be allowed to be mischievous for a week. So I'm in Santa Barbara because I did not want to travel back and forth. We had a couple of family events, one last weekend and one coming up. But before we start, I would like to point, I see Alan Frank in the room. Welcome back, Alan. Big cheer. And surprisingly, Keith Beck is on Zoom after having, I don't know if you want to flip to that slide for a second here, Joel, but Keith had major heart surgery and right after the crab feed, and you can see on the slide there, and but he's all the details, but he's back, I guess, sort of in action, at least in his bedroom, or at least one of his bedrooms. So that's great to see him. And let me see here. I got one more update. Oh, is Ron Koopman in the room? Everybody nod their head. He is. It is Ron's 80th birthday today. Give him a big hand. All right, so let's move on to the pledge. And Herb, I know you're in the room. Would you mind leading us in the pledge? Thank you so much, Herb. All right, next, songsters, what do we got?
We'll go over here. You guys are over there. What's that?
All of them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Couldn't
I have to go this way.
that way. Couldn't think of a song about the US and China's electronics issues, but we thought we'd just get back to something about love and freedom and liberty. So we're going to do this one. Ready?
Yeah.
I had a hammer. I'd hammer it all over this land. I'd hammer out dangerous. I'd hammer all I'd hammer out between my brothers and my sisters. Oh. And I had a bell. I'd ring more, I'd ring it all over this land. I'd ring out danger, I'd ring out the morning, I'd ring out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. I had a song, I'd sing it in the morning, and I'd sing it all over this land. I'd sing out danger, I'd sing out the morning, I'd sing out love between my brothers and my sisters. Oh, well, I got a hand, and I got a bell. I got a song to sing all over this land. It's the hammer of justice. It's the hammer of freedom. It's a song that love between my brothers and sisters. Oh, this land. And justice. It's the bell of freedom. It's a song that love between my brothers and my sisters. Oh, this land.
All right, thanks so much, guys. That was great. And Will, you're up next for thought.
All right. Let's move this over a little bit. Hello, Rotarians. So this past week has been a pretty challenging week for myself. I've had two friends of mine pass, and one of them was born the exact same day as my wife, which is a little eerie to me. But anyway, and then we've had several members of our club with health issues. And good to hear that some of them are on the mend. Great to see Alan here. But, you know, it gives me a time for reflection when those kind of things happen to me. I've also noticed we have a lot of new members. And so my thought for the day is going to be talking about the legacy of a past member, because I think it's important to honor some of the past Rotarians we've had. We've had some really special Rotarians. So the one I want to talk about today is Dr. John Shirley. Many of you knew John quite a bit more than myself. He was a World War II hero, noted in his book, I Remember Stories of a Combat Infantryman in World War II. He was a veterinarian, and he had the first animal hospital here in Livermore. He was the first mayor of Livermore, and he was a past president of this club. You know, I could list his accomplishments, but that would take the whole meeting. He was that impressive of a guy. So what I encourage anybody who doesn't know him or doesn't know his story to Google his name, read his obituary, or go on drjohnshirley.com, and you'll learn some really interesting things about him. Here's what I remember most about him. We had a Rotary meeting about 6 years ago, and we were honoring him, and we did a special talk about him. And his family was notified, and they flew in from all over the country. You had kids, grandkids, everybody. And to me, that's more of an accomplishment of him than any of his real accomplishments. Just the way his family just gathered around him. They were so devoted to him, and rightfully so. The last thing, he had a very good, dry sense of humor. Here's my favorite line from his obituary. You can be a bad golfer, skier, or tennis player, but you had better be a good pilot. Thank you for your service, Dr. John Shirley.
Will, that was great. So thank you so much for remembering our fan favorite, John Shirley. He will always be remembered by all of us and for the whole history of this club. So thank you so much. Now, before I introduce the front line, I do want to remind everybody we have a very tight schedule, which means, and we want to give our guest speaker all the time that he deserves. So please be brief. And Goud, I'm looking at you. So our spur reporter, Will, doing double duty, doing the thought and reporting. Ted Michaels is be our publisher. Irv is out there in the crowd taking photos. AV this week was handled by Joel Swanson. Our Zoom host and chat monitor, Jeff Youngsma, and our greeter, Christian. I'm sure Christian did one heck of a good job greeting everybody. So thank you so much for all your service. Okay, do we have any visiting Rotarians in the room?
Yes.
Please, and wait for a mic, please.
I'd like to introduce Herb Ritter from the Pleasanton North Rotary Club. And he's going to be district governor in 2025.
Wow.
Welcome, Herb. Any other visiting Rotarians?
No more. No.
All right, thanks, Sheila. Thank you. How about on Zoom? Jeff, do we have any?
I did not see any, so we are good.
How about Jeff on Zoom? Do we have any not just, but very important special guests? Do we have any of those?
Any special guests? No, everybody looks pretty good. Pat's always my backup on that in case I'm missing somebody.
All right, how about in the room? Do we have any guests? Special guests? And please wait for a mic.
It's my pleasure to introduce my good friend, Rick Stuhlen. Rick is a longtime now retiree from the Sandia Lab, rising to be head of the local branch here and head of R&D down in Albuquerque. It's good to hear him for him to get to hear Mike, because Rick ran the $250 million or $500 million, I can never remember, project that built the EUV systems for making chips, which sadly was commercialized only by a Dutch company. So there'll be stories about that. Okay.
Thank you. Welcome, Rick. Anybody else, Sheila?
Yes, we have the student of the month here. From Delva High School. And that's Harley Segovia, and the mom is here too, Maricela. We have the principal, we're gonna hear more about them later, Eric Taylor. So you're welcome to Rotary. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Welcome. Is that it, Sheila?
Yes.
All right. Okay, announcements. We have a bunch here. Let's see the first slide, please, Joel. Again, please take your time, go to the back of the room. I hope Jackie is back there somewhere with the bid sheets. Please bid often and high. Next announcement. All right. Sheila, can I ask you to come to the front of the room? And Herb, you've already been introduced, but he's going to be our governor in 25-26. And Herb is doing what I know he loves to do.
And what's that?
Give out money.
No, and you love collecting money, don't you?
Hey, absolutely. All right, the mic is yours.
I love Splend. No, hey, welcome. I'm honored to be here today. First of all, TJ, where's TJ back there? Who was in the club when TJ was president? Yay. I was his assistant governor. What was that 20 years ago we had, buddy? Yeah, it's been a while, but good to see you around. No, I'm honored to, first of all, like they said, I get to be the district governor in 2025, and it's really all about the clubs. It's not about the district or any of that. I've been in Rotary over 30 years. My dad was in Rotary, so it's I love what Rotary does. And this year they gave me the fun role of being the district conference chair. So I'll do a quick plug on that. On your table, you see the district conference plan that we have. I'm happy to announce that I think I've secured a band called the Livermore Rotary Band that might be playing at during the House of Friendship. So I'm hoping Stu will come through for me. I'm looking for some great background music, and so I'm hoping we can get you guys in on that. So, and Saturday night we're going to have the Parade of Presidents. Splend's hopefully going to be there, and if you guys want to get those big heads on popsicle sticks, I would suggest you bring that and make it be a fun event to honor your president for this year. We have some great speakers. As you can see here, we've got Jill Buck from Go Green Radio, Goodness Village. And we have Jim. He's a CEO, past CEO of Applied Materials, talking about leadership for nonprofits for lunch. And dinner, we have a great speaker talking about an Indian Foundation group. And also we have a whiskey tasting forum. We have a wine tasting forum at 2 for those afternoon drinkers. And we just secured a ChatGPT AI forum discussion. So if you want to learn how to give a speech, you could just say, give a speech to Livermore Rotary, and it'll spit it out what you're supposed to say. So those are kind of some fun things. And the district conference is just a fun event. Go online. You can use your phone. You could register right now, and we need to know what you want to eat and what else. It's a one-day conference. We did not want to have 3 days. We just wanted to do it all from the morning. We're doing the speech contest for the kids in the morning. And at the end, we're going to have a band, a tribute, a Beatles band at the end of it. So wear your best tie-dye. I think some of you probably still have some of that around. I think I have some a little bit too, but I'm a little behind some of you. But that's a little plug for that. But why I'm here today is to, on behalf of David Halbert, how many of you in the room pay taxes? So all of you contributed to this. What I'm here today to present on behalf of David Halbert, he received $3.1 million to Alameda County, and it was part of the ARPA fund, American Recovery Act. You guys remember that? He wanted to make sure it went back in the community the proper way versus just writing checks to big organizations. And he allocated for 11 clubs in the Dublin, Pleasanton, Livermore, and Fremont, $300,000. And Splend was on top of it, and we got the application in. And I'm here to present $25,000 to Livermore Rotary Club.
Thank you so much, Herb.
It's really cool because the things that you have to spend it on, it's up to you to decide. It has to be on homeless and poverty is number 1. 2, K through 12, RILA or kids interact, you can spend on that. And the last one is seniors. So anything you can do for seniors in your community. So it's the government's way of giving back to the community what you've already wrote a check to the federal government for. But we want to make sure it's a recovery after post-COVID of things you might not have been able to do, like have fundraisers and those sort of things. So it's real important that we give it back into the community. So on behalf of Supervisor Halbert, I'm presenting, and this is actually a real check. So I mean, I'm carrying around $300,000 of checks. That's kind of weird, but this one is $25,000 made out to Splendoro. No, wait a sec. Wait,
It would all go to my wife anyway. So you're doing me a favor here.
I misread that. It says Rotary Club of Livermore. So thank you all and congratulations.
Thank you so much, Herb. Thank you. So Herb, last week we had a club assembly and we talked about how to use money. And so thank you so much. And I do want to commend the artificial intelligence that allowed you to be here. And apparently it just looks like you're in person, but reality, you're sitting on a beach somewhere. I mean, technology, isn't it wonderful? Let's all give Herb a big hand.
Hey, thanks a lot, Splend.
Thanks, buddy. All right, Bill Nebo, Student of the Month. And so we're really not, so remember, please, if we can keep this short.
It is my great pleasure to introduce our Student of the Month program. And this month, the month of March, our Student of the Month will come from Del Val High School. And here to introduce him is the principal of Del Val High School, Eric Taylor.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to see you all. So thank you for this opportunity to showcase our students. This is extremely generous of you, and we truly appreciate your support. So my name is Eric Taylor, and I'm the proud principal of Del Val Continuation High School. And our school is a program, it's about 150 students, and we support students that are not on track to graduate. And our students will come to us when they're 16. And to give you some perspective, many of you know Friday the 13th, 3 years ago. Well, in education here in Livermore, that's when our worlds changed. And we had to send everybody home, and we went into this remote learning mode for about a year. It's been 3 years since then. And so our program typically gets the beginning of the school year about 90 students. And then we get midway through, we'll transfer more students in, and then we'll get 100, 110. And then by the end of the school year, we'll have about 130. This year, we've had 150 students all year long because of the impacts of COVID and what it's done to student learning. The reason it's 150 is because we're located over at the 5th Street School. Some of you might know it as our 5th Street School. It was designed originally as an elementary school. So the sizes of the rooms, I can only fit 15 students in a room. So we have become a very desirable destination to help support students. So we have the clipboard and the velvet ropes. We can only allow a certain amount of students in. So that being said, today we're honoring Harley. Harley's an amazing student. He joined us about a year ago, and he committed to completing his high school diploma. And he has done it spectacularly. He's a great role model. He's very outgoing. He's a wonderful student. I love seeing him in the hallways. He's just an amazing person. And so again, thank you for the opportunity to showcase Harley today, because he's done some really great work, and we're really excited to see him transition. I think he only has 4 credits left. Yeah. There's 4 credits left, and then he graduates. Okay. And this is his first award ceremony, right? So I know you're all wonderful people, but sometimes it can be a little intimidating. It is for me anyways. Looking at Joel right up here in the front, I mean, I'm just scared to death. But I think I'm really excited to see Harley and how he will grow and who he will become and how he will contribute to the community, because that's what we're about. And so without further ado, here's Harley.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Harley Segovia, and I'm a student at Del Valle High School. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for the recognition. It means a lot to me and my family. While attending Del Valle, I was part of our culinary program for the past year. I participated in our annual scone fundraiser where we made over 200 scones, and participated in the chili cook-off where Del Valle was able to win first place against businesses and markets. During that time, I learned a lot of real life experiences that helped improve my work ethic and was able to upbring myself in a better position. After high school, I plan to go to Las Positas and take welding classes and become an apprenticeship program, and afterward apply to become a journeyman. My main goal in life is to have a high income position in welding or any trade field, and start my own business to become successful and wealthy. I plan to keep going forward with my goals, no matter the struggle, to make my parents proud. I'd like to thank my family, especially my parents, for their sacrifices and hardships that made me who I am today. Lastly, I would like to thank the staff at Del Valle for making my goals possible. Thank you all for hearing me. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, Harley, and we have for you a plaque.
Oh, thank you.
And some gifts, and also a certificate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Congratulations, Harley. Thank you, Principal Taylor and Bill. Thank you so much. Appreciate all you guys do. And good luck to you in the future, Harley. Okay. Okay, we have a couple announcements here. On the 25th, this month, we have our Area 4 Community Service Project. This is for those of you that participated when we did, I believe it was in the fall. So we'll be packing food packages. I don't recall exactly where this was going. We were doing, I believe, Ukraine last time. I'm not sure what this one's for, but there's 2 shifts. You should have some brochures on or flyers on the tables, and you can see that there's to sign up. You just have to scan a QR code. Next. All right, Gowd, please. Quickly as you can. Recognize all those wonderful Rotarians.
I call names, everybody runs so we can save some time.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon. Unmute myself. Okay. Oh, I'm good. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to talk about 3 things. EY status, that is every Rotarian every year. And we got some changes, and I'm going to talk a little bit more on that. And where we are on a TRF fundraising. And we got 3.5 months to go, and we got some goals. TRF recognition, we have several of them, and I'm going to call the names. Everybody come here. I'll give you a pin later and certificate, but let's all come here and we'll take a photo. Next. I can't see this. What happened?
Oh, later.
Huh.
Please read there.
All right. Okay, as of now,
we have 50 Rotarians who contributed this year. And that is about 52%. The remainder of them have to contribute something to get us to 100% EREY. We started with a $100 recommended donation because we were matching $100 with the foundation recognition points so the people can get to Paul Harris Fellow quicker. But now, 3.5 months to go, I'm requesting, please do 25 a month for the next 3 months, 4 months, or at least do 25 so we can all get counted as EREY. I purchased these buttons every Rotarian every year in India while I was there. And I got name tags for those who have already given. They're on the table. Please pick it up. If I miss any one of them, I'll give you next time. So please make the donation to Rotary Foundation. Hopefully 100, if not minimum 25. Thank you. Now, as far as our yearly goals for the annual fund, we are at 49,472, which is about 75%, and still have 3.5 months. So I think we're doing okay. Polio Plus, we're a little behind. We are at 55% as of this morning, went up by 1. All right, I'm going to call. Go ahead, next one. Loretta Caskey, is she here? Okay. Stuart. Alan Frank. Theodore. Ted Michael. All right. Brian. Jeff Engsma, also not here. Online, okay. Leland Yonker. Linda Tenney. Len Sapola. Okay, so Linda is getting Paul Harris Fellow first time. Okay. All right, in the interest of time, do you want to take a picture first? All right. So
Face this way, you know, the camera's over here.
all right. Mike Morgan is here. Yeah, please come in. You get the certificate you didn't get last time. All right. Let me read. Loretta is getting Paul Harris Fellow. Stuart is getting Paul Harris Fellow. Alan Frank, now you're getting Paul Harris Fellow +6. And Ted is getting Paul Harris Fellow +6. Brian is getting Paul Harris Fellow +7. Jeffrey Youngsma is getting Paul Harris Fellow 7 and 8. And Leland Yonker is getting Paul Harris Fellow 8. Okay. So thank you very much. All right, I got to call Mark. I know he got his award.
Okay.
While he's running back there, can I say one thing? Rick Green was in my office yesterday, and he wanted to thank everyone for the nice card for Carol. She's doing well. She didn't break any bones or anything when she fell. She had some lacerations. Carol is at home. She's on oxygen all the time, but I spoke with her and she sounded real good. She recognized me, etc. So he wanted to say thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, so I'm going to do traditional honoring of you. This is something I started this year and for being a major donor. And congratulations. And, we have about potentially 6 major donors within a reach. I'm going to be talking to them, plus few others. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Gad. Thank you, Mark. Congratulations.
All right.
All right, if I could ask Carol, you have I know you want to introduce a very important, make an announcement. Give Carol a mic.
Yesterday, TJ and I helped sort 1,000 books that are part of the Gift of Reading program that we started last year. Those books will go to the third graders, all third graders in Livermore next week and the following week. I only have a little bit of time, but I wanted to tell you I have a sign-up sheet back in the back of the room. It's a very popular thing. We actually had two pretty nifty people there last year. Gordon, and I think he went to his granddaughter's school, and I think where is JR went to his grandchild's school, right? Daughter's the teacher. And so there'll be about 20 slots that you can sign up 2 hours at a time, sometimes 2.5, and you present the books to these children who are so delighted. They're books that they chose. We aren't just giving out one title. There are 6 titles we're giving out this year. So I'll look forward to telling you more about it next week, but if you'll come back and sign up back here, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. All right, I don't know if Yvonne's there, but if she isn't, I can give the announcement. We still need signups. Yvonne is not there.
What was the question? I didn't hear it.
International Student Weekend. We just
Oh,
want to
no,
continue.
right now we are good. We have
Okay.
19 students. I have families. And the invitation for all of the members to attend the potluck is still there, even if you're not hosting. Sign-up sheets are coming around, so please sign up. I do need to give table and chair counts by next week. So I'll send another reminder email, but we are good for hosting and now we're just looking forward to the fun.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Thank you so much. It'll be success. All right, I had it. Is Jim there? He is not.
Wait a minute.
I'm at a loss here.
Jim, I'm going to push this to next week. We were going to, you had asked me to recognize some more people of all the good work to Livermore Opera. How about we push this to next week?
Okay, that's fine.
All right. And one more from Paul. We need some host families. We could talk about this in the future quite a bit, but.
Hey,
Paul,
yeah,
you wanna
I just
introduce
wanted to
yourself?
put out a first call here. Our club is going to be hosting an international exchange student for the next school year, and we are looking for host families. Hosting an exchange student is a rewarding way to meet interesting people and to get to know other cultures. Incoming students are 16 to 18 years old. They're bright, outgoing, and very interesting. They will be attending Livermore High School. Host families gain fantastic experiences and form lifelong relations with their students. We will need 3 families each to host a student for a 3-month period. We also need at least 1 backup family to take over hosting duties in an emergency. All host families will be trained to Rotary standards and have constant support from our club and the very active District 5170 exchange program. All Livermore families are eligible to host. From those with young children to retired couples, each family is unique and gives the student a different perspective on American life. Talk to your family and friends. If you know someone who might be interested in this great experience, contact me and I will provide more information and/or put them in touch with someone who has hosted before. Thank you, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you so much, Paul. And Jay, I know you're going to make an introduction. If you can make your way up, you see who our program is next week, or it's going to be online, virtual, the CEO of the Oakland Zoo. And I have a couple of just additional introductions here. Next slide, please. Okay, well, I do want to introduce a couple, while Jay is walking up to the podium, that we are going to be looking at possibly moving our meetings to Las Positas Winery with a catered lunch. And the board will be discussing that tomorrow. And I also want to mention, I know that Herb is there, that the district, and I think it's more the areas, it's a long story, but we may be holding a holiday party. There'll be a charge and probably around $100, but it'll be at either Casa Real or at the Palm Event Center. But either one, it'll be a holiday party for all the Rotarians. Okay, Jay, take it away.
All right.
Sorry.
Can I have my slide? Oh, okay. It's not the one I sent you, but that's all right. Never mind. So anyway, I'm very, very pleased to introduce my good friend, Mike Slessor. Mike is the president and CEO of Form Factor, which I think I have it right, is the largest civil employer in Livermore. You didn't know it, but they're there. Mike is a Canadian come to us. He has a bachelor's degree from the University of British Columbia with first-class honors in science, and then a PhD in aeronautical engineering and electrical engineering from Caltech. Just to give you the one number I know that explain why this is a matter of international concern, only 11% of the chips made in the world are made in the United States, and only 3% of them are packaged into a useful product in the United States. Mike's company makes the electronic equipment that verifies those chips while they're on a 30-centimeter wafer, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 at a time. If you ever get a chance to go look at their stuff, it's fascinating. He is totally wired into a big international industry, and I thought he would be a very good person to talk to us about how the ground is moving under them with export controls and competition. So Mike, over to you.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you everyone for the invitation today. It's a pleasure to be here and meet some of you for the first time. I'm sorry for those of you on Zoom. I'm a bit of a wanderer when I talk in a room like this, and so you're going to see me fade in and out. But first, can you hear me okay? The audio's okay? Great. All right. So as Jay said, the ground is shifting out from underneath us, and I'm going to start with a quick video that you can find. It's a quick part of a video. You can find the longer video on YouTube. I think it's done by CNBC. But I wanted to provide a little bit of background before we get into some of the details here.
Chips are in everything, and they've been in short supply since just a few months into the pandemic last year. That's why it's been hard to buy everything from cars to PS5s. Turns out one company makes 24% of all the world's chips and more than 90% of the most advanced ones, the smallest, fastest chips used in today's iPhones, supercomputers, and automotive AI.
All right, so chips are important, and one company makes 90% of the advanced ones in the world. Anybody hazard a guess what that company is? That's right, TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. And that's caused a good deal of alarm in governments around the world for some very good reasons. But we'll walk through with how the response, it really is changing the face of the semiconductor industry. Lots of words here. I won't take you through all of them, and I'm assuming you distribute the slides. So if you want to read all of them, you can. Chips are important, but the industry that makes these chips has grown up as a essentially borderless, global, interconnected industry. I've been in the industry 25 odd years. If you look at my passports, China, Singapore, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, right, all over the place. And as you'll see in a minute, all of the suppliers in the industry and customers in the industry are global in nature. We've relied on this global interconnectedness and essentially frictionless commerce across borders to grow the industry in the way it's grown. Partially because of the pandemic and the shortage of all kinds of different things, from cars to electronics to PCs, but also governments started to understand that semiconductors were the essence of national defense, right? Guidance system and missiles, the thing that runs, the F-22 flight computer, things like artificial intelligence, right? All of these things run on chips or semiconductors. It's the heart of all of this technology. And so governments started to get very concerned, right? One, that their defense industries were on somewhat shaky ground. And two, right, all of these interconnected industries like cars, Ford had to shut down an F-150 factory for several weeks because it didn't have a 5-cent microcontroller to go into these things. So what's that done? It's caused governments here in the US and globally to start to look at nationalizing and onshoring their own semiconductor industries, looking at the semiconductor industry a lot more like it would have looked at the defense industry 30, 40, 50 years ago. Now,
The other thing that plays into this is the US and China are not nearly as friendly as they were several years ago, certainly when I started in this industry, and even 5 odd years ago. And one of China's aspirations is to become a world leader in semiconductors. They've made some pretty good progress, but they're not anywhere close to there yet. And for those of you that understand world geopolitics, Taiwan and China, although they're close to each other and share a pretty common history, are very, very different countries. Right? And so Taiwan's independence layers into this whole thing as well. So you've got a very complicated geopolitical scenario. You've got deteriorating US-China relations, and the industry where China's aspiring to become a world leader, all of a sudden the US has decided this is a really important industry. So why isn't it easy to just sort of bring it all back to the US, right? After all, this is basically where the industry started with companies like Intel and Texas Instruments. It turns out making semiconductors is really expensive and really complicated. A leading edge facility right now takes you, best case, 3 years to build, probably more like 5 years. And somewhere around, let's call it $10 to $20 billion, depending on how big it is and what technology it's going to use. All of the know-how that goes into that manufacturing facility is also built up over years, right? You've got a set of suppliers, form factor being one of them, and I'll give you a brief form factor commercial in a minute. But companies you've probably heard of, Jay mentioned one of them, ASML, a Dutch company that essentially has a monopoly on the patterning technology that etches all of the little circuits onto the chip. Applied Materials, a big Silicon Valley employer. KLA Tencor, company where I spent the first 10 years of my career. Lam Research, who's got a production facility out here. All these companies essentially own near monopoly positions in, or maybe monopoly is a strong word, a couple of supplier positions in key process steps that customers like an Intel, like a TSMC use, right, to build these chips. So a tremendous amount of know-how for each of these steps relies in the suppliers, people like FormFactor, Applied Materials, KLA, ASML. And as a consequence, 1 or 2 countries, right? If you think about lithography, the Netherlands essentially owns lithography because of ASML. Etch and dep, the United States is in a pretty strong position because of Applied and Lam. Japan plays pretty strongly in this as well with a large company called Tokyo Electron. But you see quickly, this is an industry that's grown up, again, essentially being borderless and not caring where these different suppliers and customers are located and headquartered. And now all of a sudden it's become important. But to stand up a factory takes 3 to 5 years and a whole bunch of capital. So it's not going to happen overnight. All right, my quick form factor commercial. As Jay said, we're headquartered here, just off of 580 in Greenville. Trailing 12-month revenue, of course, close to $750 million. And worldwide, we employ a little over 2,000 people. Customers, you can imagine in an industry this concentrated, you only have a handful of important customers. And you see some of the awards they've given us down the bottom. And some of the neat technologies we've provided, from electrical tests to optical tests. Basically, our job is to make sure that these chips work before they go to the downstream processes, things like putting them into the iPhone. People use form factor equipment to make sure that the processor in the iPhone, the memory in the iPhone is good before it goes on the motherboard in the iPhone, so you don't have to scrap all the other stuff on the motherboard. So that's a little bit about us. I told you it was global. So here on the left, sorry, it's kind of hard to read here, but it is a slide from our corporate propaganda deck that shows all of our worldwide locations. Now, some of those are reps and distributors, but you do get a sense of, we are a company that's global in nature. You know, we've got 100 people in Japan, 110 people in Taiwan, 70 people in Japan,
all form factor employees. Whoops. And as a result, I've taken a snippet from our last annual report, and you can see where our revenue comes from. In fiscal 2022, 23% of revenue came from Taiwan. 20+% came from China. So we're a US supplier, right? Making stuff here in Livermore and shipping it to China. You can imagine the US government starting to look at that and go, should we let that happen? Well, late last year, they decided, and not just for form factor, but for companies like Applied Materials, like KLA, they were going to start to have controls on some of the technology we could export into China. So as it happened on a Friday, there was a rule released by the Department of Commerce that said all of this. But basically what it said is, you US suppliers, form factor, Applied Materials, KLA, can't ship equipment or materials or anything that enables production of advanced semiconductors. That was a significant change to the way we've been doing business. You can see I had 20% of 2022 revenue from China. So clearly we were shipping advanced stuff, lots of companies shipping advanced stuff. And this happened remarkably quickly. I'm going to play you another video that explains the Department of Commerce's rationale for this, straight from the Commerce Secretary.
You know, most people realize it was necessary. We have to protect the American people against China, period, full stop. China has become more aggressive in what they call their military civil fusion strategy, which is essentially fancy talk for buying our sophisticated chips, which are supposedly for commercial purposes, and putting them into military equipment to advance their military. And this is the most strategic, most bold move we've ever made to say, no, we're not going to stand for that. And yes, it will deny some revenue to some US companies. And I have talked to the CEOs of every company. As you know, Jim, I always do. We have a lot of stakeholder feedback, but it was necessary. And I think you'll see other countries follow us. I think you'll see Japan and the Netherlands follow our lead.
Well, if that's the case, then what will happen is the real intellectual property in a foundry, you and I both know that, semiconductor capital equipment typically made by Lam Research or Applied Materials, KLA, ASML. If you buy all of the equipment and the Japanese buy the equipment, the Chinese will be denied the equipment that they need to make the chips. So this could actually, unlike, say, tariffs like the previous administration, this has the impact of stopping the military from perhaps even trying to take over Taiwan.
Absolutely. We know that it will. I mean, we're ahead of them, right? The reality is, for chip design, for the most sophisticated chips, artificial intelligence chips, the chips that they need in their hypersonic missile, which they launched last year, we are ahead of them. We need to stay ahead of them, and we need to deny them this technology that they need to advance their military. And that's exactly what we're doing.
So you hear a degree of rhetoric there that has been pretty uncommon for the semiconductor industry, right? And this, I will tell you, for people in this industry has been a little bit disorienting. It's also been disorienting, right? Because it has created a revenue impact for all of us as US suppliers out to the industry. Applied Materials forecasted a $2.5 billion revenue hit from these very regulations. We had a more modest hit because we're a smaller company, but together with an industry downturn, forced us to lay off about 13% of the workforce, most of it here in Livermore. Now, these are things that I think as an industry, as US either citizens or permanent residents, we understand these are necessary, right? So there's no pushback on the rationale associated with this, but there are going to be impacts. You can imagine changing an industry that's grown up over 5 decades to be entirely globally interconnected, to operate like there were no borders, right? All of a sudden to break that when it takes 3 years and $15 billion to build a facility, it's going to cause some problems, going to cause some discontinuities. So
where do we go from here and where's the opportunity? As Jay said, right, it's kind of an interesting situation, right? The US has understood that semiconductors are central to the economy and the military, and we no longer make any here, right? We've got a very strong set of enabling suppliers, Applied Materials, us, KLA, companies like this, but the fabrication of the semiconductors using our products doesn't happen in the US anymore. So the government's recognized that and has begun to try and incent people to build semiconductors here in the US again. You've probably heard of the CHIPS Act. There's some quotes over on the side, but the fundamental idea behind the CHIPS Act is there's going to be government incentives to build semiconductor fabrication facilities, these $15 billion, 3-year kind of operations here in the US. Intel is going to be a big recipient of this. TSMC, ironically, is going to be a big recipient of this. But fundamentally, it's a change, both government interaction even in this industry, forget about funding, is an entirely new thing for the industry. And so this is a first step. 50 billion sounds like a big number, but you can imagine if you're building $15 to $20 billion facilities, it's not that big a number. And that only goes to building what are called wafer fabrication facilities, the front end chips themselves. They then have to be packaged into something useful so that they can then go into the iPhone. And none of that's even contemplated for the US now. So you could end up, if it stops here, being a scenario where you build the wafers here and still end up shipping them to Taiwan to turn them into the little black plastic things that then go into the iPhone. So with that, I think I'll leave it. This is the same summary slide as I had before and open it up for questions.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate you coming here and talking about a very important subject. So I don't know if Joel, you could moderate questions. I do have, Mike, one thing I would like to, a couple of things I'd like to tell you. Our mayor wanted to be here to meet you. I don't know if you know him, but he wants to meet you. He wants to know all the CEOs of the bigger employers. So if you're so inclined, maybe Joel can share your contact information. I can pass them along to Mayor Marchand. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we did a big facility opening, it's getting to be a couple of years ago now, and invited the mayor and people from the mayor's office. I don't think they were able to come. So we never managed to connect, but we'd certainly welcome the opportunity. So please, yes, pass.
All right, thank you so much. And Jay, I'll email you. So let's, Joel, if you can moderate some questions in the room first. And if you raise your hand on Zoom, I'll call on you.
Yeah, you mentioned about the CHIPS Act will benefit Intel and TSM. I think the other third big recipient is Samsung, who's South Korean. So how effective really is this CHIPS Act going to be?
Well, the CHIPS Act, the intention is to onshore semiconductor production. If you look at, let's use the TSMC example for a second, but you're absolutely right. Samsung is likely to be a beneficiary of this as well, because they've built fabs in Texas and are likely to build another fab in Texas. Fabs are these, $15 billion kind of facilities. They're colloquially known in the industry as a fab. With the goal being that onshoring production, you're either going to give the money to a combination of Intel, TSMC, and Samsung, or you're going to give it all to Intel, because Intel is the last standing high-end manufacturer that's US headquartered. So I think it's a reasonable choice to say, all right, TSMC makes, I'm guessing now, but probably 2/3 of the chips that go into the iPhone for Apple are made by TSMC. Onshoring that's probably a worthy thing to do, given that Apple's a US company. But again, you see, it's a perfect example of the global interconnectedness of this industry, which $50 billion ain't gonna break.
Okay, Mark.
Okay, so your world got much more complicated with this. So what do you see as the opportunities, not only in this step, which feels very much like we've got a very modest, nice, heading in the right direction down payment-y thing, but not at all a strategy that stretches out over a couple of administrations and several different parts of the industry. So what does your world look like and what do your opportunities look like now?
Right. Well, I think one of the things we didn't dwell on, but form factor is either the number 1 or number 2 supplier in all of our served segments. And that scale gives us certain inherent competitive advantages as the industry starts to fragment like this, right? We've got very strong customer relationships in each of these regions. And so one of the things I think that's going to be a way to gain advantage from this is to double down on this regionalization, to still be able to do your R&D, your fundamental development here, but give a little more autonomy and ownership and maybe some manufacturing capacity overseas. But it's going to be a long-term kind of distribution, right? Dissociation of all the things that we've done primarily in Livermore for 25 or 30 years.
Okay. Linda Tinney.
I'm the least scientific person in this room, but it seems to me that with the world the way it is and with our problems with China and you being in the business for 50 years, wouldn't you?
I was only 25.
I'm sorry.
I'm only 53.
Okay, sorry. Wouldn't you have predicted that this could be a problem coming down on you at some point before the government said something to you?
Yes and no, but if you look at the way the industry has behaved, right? Intel, for example, has large production facilities in Portland, yes, but in Chengdu, China, in Dalian, China, in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in Dublin, Ireland, we all operated like this was a borderless world, and governments kind of let us get away with it, for lack of a better term. And as you know, what's my job when you look at fundamentally, it's to deliver shareholder returns. It's not to protect national security, right? We're all publicly traded companies who are trying to maximize our long-term profit margins and our total shareholder return. So if you don't have to, segmenting the industry now into a country by country thing is a very inefficient structure compared to a globally interconnected network.
Alan.
Livermore is undergoing a general plan update. I'm on the advisory committee for that. Of course, Mark probably pays attention to that as well. One of the things that we deal with is the issue of housing versus space for expansion of companies and wanting to make sure that that's a proper balance. And so what were you thinking about the long range future in Livermore and how might that be changed by this turmoil that's going on now?
Yeah. Well, as I said in response to one of the earlier questions, I think it will make us a more distributed company, globally distributed company, and make most of the supply chain more globally distributed. So the model where, essentially the nerve center and the majority of the manufacturing capacity for the business was in Livermore, I think is going to diffuse a little bit. Now, the thing we didn't talk about was semiconductors is a pretty interesting growth industry, right? It's grown over the long term at close to double-digit annual growth rates over a multi-decade period. So that doesn't mean we're going to be downsizing here, but it probably means we're going to be growing in other places. I think the bigger concern is infrastructure and workforce. It's not land. It's, we were talking a little bit before, we put in our own Bloom Energy grid because we couldn't depend on PG&E to have the reliable power for a manufacturing facility. The workforce development and having a strong stream of technical talent, both people for operators in our production line, but engineering talent as well, I feel like is a bigger constraint for the growth of this business and the growth of the industry than factory footprint.
Can I get in Hank has his hand up. Hank, you have a quick question? Unmute yourself, please.
Unmute yourself, Hank.
Thank you. If you look back maybe 50 years, when I was last associated with the technical problems associated with lithography, for example, the big focus was on a couple of physical problems. If you look at the suite of physical problems that you face today in semiconductor manufacture, what are they?
It's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to move the industry around. The know-how required, 50 years ago, it really was about lithography, right? You essentially had layers of glass that you were patterning on and then dumping in a hydrofluoric acid tank and etching away. Today, there's hundreds and hundreds of materials that make up a transistor. The transistor, essentially the unit cell of the chip, the thing that makes computation possible. And so you've got this myriad of physical problems, from imaging essentially the size of an atom to depositing materials a layer of atoms thick over, these 12-inch, they look like an old LP, these 12-inch wafers, and doing it unbelievably uniformly and at very, very high yields, right? Remember, this is not a science business. This is a manufacturing business where every penny counts. And so the physical problems, and it's one of the reasons why people like me are in the industry now, right? As Jay said, I got my PhD in aeronautics and physics from Caltech. Well, what does that have to do with the semiconductor industry? It turns out that the fundamental physics I studied is exactly how you deposit some of these films to make a transistor. And it's one of the more interesting things about the industry is you get to work across electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, physics, all kinds of neat stuff that are the physical challenges for the industry. But because it's so varied and complex in the need to understand these things, makes it very difficult to instantly create new competition, new companies, or shift an industry, for example, from Taiwan to the US.
Okay, we have one more question in the room here from Alan Frank.
Yeah, one of the things you talked about, most of the US companies really rely on highly technically competent people, employees, whereas much of the manufacturing does not require that level of education or competence. And that's one reason it's been shipped overseas to where the labor market is much lower. If you're going to bring all that here, how is that going to be incorporated?
It's going to make iPhones more expensive, right? Fundamentally. Yeah. And I think it was a McKinsey study that looked at this, and I don't remember exactly what the numbers were, but on a like-for-like basis, the ability to operate or the cost to operate a fab in the US compared to Taiwan was something like 35, 40, 45% higher. And it's labor, it's taxes, it's infrastructure costs, it's all kinds of different things, but it's going to make electronics more expensive.
Dr. Slessor, do you have some time to stay for a few minutes after the meeting? Because we're supposed to stop now.
Sure.
All right. Let's thank Dr. Slessor again for his talk.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, everybody. Joel, thank you so much for sticking with us. I hope this 90 minutes was part of a great part of your week, and have a great, we'll see you next week.